I've got a promotion exam at work, and I need to buy the study materials for it. Also, if I don't do overtime, my salary will be reduced.
Mike said while we were discussing how to manage our finances for our life together after getting married. He has to study for the promotion exam, so the money he can bring into the household will decrease. I thought it was fine since both of us are working. However, right after that, I started feeling uneasy about Mike's behavior. He was using an unfamiliar app on his phone, and his overtime suddenly increased. Most of all, when we went out to eat, he wouldn't take a single bite of food. I was also curious about the waiter's strange hand movements. I felt like I had seen those hand movements somewhere before. If my suspicion is right, it could turn out to be pretty bad. I left the bar for a drink and distanced myself from Mike. I decided to uncover his suspicious activities. Thinking nobody would notice was a huge mistake. My name is Emily Wilson, and I'm turning 38 this year. I work as a tax accountant, and both my career and personal life are fulfilling. I can proudly say that I'm enjoying both my professional and personal life now, but it was quite a challenging journey to get here. When I graduated from college, the economy was in a slump, and I struggled to find a job. I felt a strong pressure to work properly and become a part of the workforce, which led me to feel like I was just spinning my wheels at that time. Eventually, I landed a job offer from a small company. Honestly, I was reluctantly working there. However, that's when my turning point came. While working and interacting with other companies, I realized that many workplaces lacked vitality. Many companies were not able to increase their profits as they hoped and were struggling with what to do next. I wanted to help improve these companies' morale and sales, to increase the number of workplaces where people could work with a smile. Driven by this desire, I decided to pursue a career where I could contribute to the growth and performance of companies, which led me to become a tax accountant after years of study. I became a tax accountant at the age of 34. Switching from an employee in a small company to a tax accountant was quite an unusual path. Thanks to that, I finally found what I truly wanted to do. Of course, this journey made my work life very rewarding, but I felt something was missing in my personal life. What am I missing? I realized it was the absence of a partner who could be there for me, someone to share and solve problems with. My days off were spent alone, watching movies or shopping. My friends started having families and getting married, so our days out together became less frequent. While I do enjoy my alone time, I can't help but think how wonderful it would be to share these moments with someone special. At my friend's suggestion, I signed up for a dating site app. Among several people I messaged, there was one man with whom I felt a particular connection. That man turned out to be my future husband, Mike Smith. Mike worked for a well-known electronics company and seemed to be good at his job. Our message exchanges were smooth and effortless, which left a good impression on me. When we first met in person, I could easily picture myself being with him. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, but it doesn't really feel like the first time since we've been messaging on the app, right?
True, it almost feels like we've known each other for a long time. Was this one having the right chemistry felt like? Our conversation flowed naturally, both in tempo and content. I didn't know being in a relaxed relationship could feel this comfortable. And Mike was very suave, which I found appealing.
You might be surprised since we've just met, but I would like to date you with the intention of getting married, Emily.
I've always wanted to be with someone wonderful like you, Mike, so I'm truly happy. It didn't take long to move from dating with marriage in mind to the actual marriage. I will never forget Mike proposing to me at a beautiful seaside restaurant with a bouquet of roses.
Emily, I will make you happy. Please stay with me. Would you marry me?
Yes, I'd love to. I want to be with you forever. I finally married Mike at 38. It might have been a late spring compared to others, but marriage is not about age. When and whom you marry and what makes you happy is the most important thing. I was certain I could be happy with him. However, it seems I was the only one who thought this way. A faint shadow was looming over our marriage, yet I was reluctant to acknowledge it. Mike and I both worked, and we decided it was better to have some personal spending money, so we opted for an allowance system. We agreed to put the necessary funds into a common purse and left the rest for each of us to spend freely. When we discussed how much money to contribute in the future, Mike raised a concerning issue.
About the money we put in the common purse, is it okay if I contribute less than Emily?
What do you mean? If you don't mind, can I ask why? Then, hesitantly but finally, Mike spoke up.
There's a promotion exam at work coming up, and I need to buy materials for it. Also, if I leave work without doing overtime, my salary will be reduced.
Oh, I see. Preparing for a promotion exam while working must be tough indeed. I understand. I'll help in any way I can.
Really? That's so like you, Emily.
Mike exclaimed with a clap of his hands. Of course, it's an important exam for your future career. I want you to be able to give it your best. I remembered the mental struggle I had when I was preparing for my tax accountant exam. Having quit my job to focus on studying at that time, I could imagine how difficult it must be to study for an exam while working. Don't worry about the money. Focus on preparing for your promotion exam, Mike.
Thank you. You're amazing, Emily.
So, when is the exam?
It's in 8 months. It's a bit far off, but…
As Mike expressed his relief at being able to focus on his studies, I reassured myself that this was the right thing to do. However, right after we agreed on this, Mike's work behavior drastically changed. What? You have a business trip the day after tomorrow? Right after we decided how much to contribute to our shared finances, his business trips for work suddenly increased.
It can't be helped. It's a work assignment.
But you need to prepare for the upcoming promotion exam, right? And yet, there are so many business trips.
Are you saying I should defy orders and not go on the business trip?
Mike stared at me as he said that. It's not that. I just got worried.
Then please don't interfere. How well I can perform here is what matters.
Okay, but don't overdo it. It's often said that men become oblivious to everything else once they're focused on work, and Mike seemed to fit that mold.
I've been with this company for a long time, and I want to expand my role even further in the future.
It would be great to see you achieving more. I'm here to support you. Mike looked satisfied, but I was oblivious to the underlying issues. He started bringing his work home, so I always made sure not to disturb him while he was focused. It felt restrictive, but I did it for Mike. Then, one quiet evening, the notification sound of a smartphone echoed in the living room. Oh, that's Mike's phone. The notification sounds beeped continuously just as Mike went to the bathroom. I thought I should inform him if it was an important work call. When I casually picked up his phone, something felt off. A glittering character on a light blue background was displayed prominently on the screen. Mike usually used his phone only for work, so this app seemed out of place. Could it be an app for meeting someone of the opposite sex? But that wouldn't make sense now that we're married. Just as I was pondering this, Mike came back from the bathroom.
Hey, why are you?
Oh, your phone was ringing nonstop, so I thought I'd give it to you in case it was work-related.
Hey, don't do more than you need to.
He rushed over and snatched his phone out of my hand. With a sharp snap, the phone transferred to Mike's hand. I'm sorry, but you don't have to snatch it like that.
Keep out of it. I haven't announced our marriage at work. It would be shocking if you suddenly answered my phone,
He explained while hastily checking his phone screen. Indeed, in a large company like Mike's, not everyone would know who's married and who's not. Even though I just tried to pass him his phone, he became irritable. Maybe his work isn't going well. Mike's mood often reflects how things are going at work, so it's probably the case this time too. After that day, I found myself being more cautious around Mike. I don't want to be accused of not doing a good job because of me. But then, perhaps noticing my concern, Mike approached me.
Hey, are you free after work this Thursday?
I'll probably finish around 7, but is there something special?
Well, I felt bad about the other day. How about we go out for a drink as an apology?
Seeing his awkward smile, I felt a wave of relief and quickly agreed. That sounds good, but it's unusual for you to suggest going out for drinks. What's the occasion? As I asked playfully, Mike seemed to relax and started talking.
Don't say that. I've just made some progress with a new client, and it went well. I wanted to share the happiness with you, Emily.
Oh, that's good news. I thought you were dealing with some tough project because you look so serious, but I'm glad it turned out well.
How about we meet at our usual station and then head to the bar from there?
Before we got married, we used to visit various places and enjoy bar hopping. We both liked having conversations without holding back and savored the pairing of drinks and snacks as a hobby. Lately, we hadn't had the chance to explore new places due to our busy schedules, but this seemed like the perfect opportunity. With frequent changes in the shops around our memory-filled station, we might discover some interesting new spots. I was really looking forward to the day of our date. To make sure I wasn't late for our meetup, I finished work earlier than usual. I remembered how we used to go bar hopping in this area before we got married. I was excited to remember that. We always chose a place based on our mood at the moment, making each visit unique.
Hey, over here. So, where shall we go today?
As we walked side by side through the bustling streets, a particular sign caught my attention. The decoration was modest, but each piece of ornamentation seemed sophisticated. The tile work was also delicately patterned, exuding a sense of style. The sign marked open-listed delicious-sounding dishes and the bartender's recommendations, handwritten with care. It appeared that the bartender's favorite drinks were on offer today. Seeing it for the first time, I felt drawn to it. Hey, how about we try this place today? Although I had passed by here many times, the discovery filled me with joy.
Really? This place? Shouldn't we check out a few others? There are plenty of bars around.
But this place has a variety of drinks and dishes, and it looks stylish. It might be nice to try something different for a change.
Huh? Have you ever wanted a stylish place? It's not like you to suddenly go for such ones. I can't keep up with this.
though there was no compelling reason to pick that particular bar. His strong refusal made me wonder if there was something more to it. I thought this place would be nice, but you don't like it, do you? Mike sighed heavily, as if giving up.
All right, as you wish.
His petulant behavior troubled me. Was my preference for this bar really such a bad choice? I couldn't understand the recent fluctuations in Mike's mood. Upon entering, we saw a bar counter and tables, with a bartender and a female apprentice, identified by her badge, standing nearby. I caught a fleeting glance from the bartender, which felt oddly unsettling. Perhaps because it had just opened? There were no other customers. It was like we had the place to ourselves. We took a seat at the back and unfolded the food menu. Let's start with some appetizers and maybe a whiskey soda.
Okay.
I closed the menu in my hand and placed our order using the touch panel nearby. It's modern, isn't it? Ordering at a bar with a tablet. It's nice not having to call over a waiter.
Yay.
Mike's response seemed somewhat distracted. The female apprentice bought us her food and drinks. She glanced at my face, then made a puzzled expression. Was there something on my face? Maybe my fatigue from work was showing? I took the dishes from her anyway. The food looked delicious. Assortment of cheese, pickles, and hot potato skins. I was torn about what to eat first. In front of Mike and me were the whiskey sodas we ordered. To Mike's work success, cheers! I tried to lift the mood, raising my glass with enthusiasm. Then, I eagerly started on the food in front of me. I had missed lunch due to a sudden work task, so I was famished. With such appetizing food in front of me, I couldn't resist. Also, I needed to put something in my stomach to prevent getting tipsy too quickly. I reached for the potato skins first. The hot sauce and creamy cheese were incredibly delicious, warming my chilled body. Glancing at Mike, I saw him sipping his whiskey soda slowly. It was unusual for him to drink his whiskey soda in such small sips, and his gaze seemed to wander. Besides, he was upset and had shifty eyes. Aren't you eating? Was Mike not fond of potatoes? While pondering this, I served myself another portion. If you're not eating, I will. I missed lunch today. While laughing and serving myself some potatoes, I caught the eye of a woman who was making a strange gesture. She was rotating her right ring finger on the palm of her left hand, which was facing upwards. Thinking about that peculiar movement, it dawned on me that it might be sign language for drugs. She was positioned so that only I could see her, implying she had something to convey just to me. Realizing she was using sign language to communicate with me specifically, I hastily put down my potatoes and headed to the bathroom with my smartphone. Sorry, I need to use the restroom real quick.
Are you feeling all right?
Just a moment. Keep eating. Feeling as if my feet were glued to the floor, I sensed it might be better to leave the bar. Perhaps it was best if I left first. Pretending it was work-related, I quickly returned from the bathroom and spoke to Mike. Sorry, I've got to go, work called.
Oh, really? That's too bad.
Yo, sorry. Are you going to stay and drink?
Yay, might as well. It's been a while since I've been out.
Pretending to go back to work, I decided to stay at a business hotel instead. What the female apprentice at the bar was trying to say, Mike's expressions and his gestures, I felt curious and sensed that this was not going to end without incident. Overthinking made my head feel like it was going to explode, so I browsed websites on my smartphone to calm down. While watching the news, I noticed an intriguing advertisement. The ad for an app titled How to Meet Your Soulmate was the same one installed on Mike's phone. That's it. The notification that wouldn't stop on his phone. I thought it was work-related. I instinctively covered my gaping mouth with both hands. Should a married person even keep a dating app installed? Moreover, I know these kinds of apps are all the rage now, being released one after another in city advertisements. Therefore, people wanting to meet others must be using multiple apps. Given Mike's personality, he would be seeking efficiency, probably juggling several apps. It seems unlikely that he would have just one app downloaded. I had a bad feeling, so I decided to check what kind of app it was. Then, I discovered numerous apps. Though it was just a glimpse, some seemed familiar, as if they were on Mike's phone. Mike is meticulous and detailed, so it's hard to imagine him leaving unused apps lying around. I downloaded an app that seemed to be the same as the one Mike was using and registered as a member. That light blue app briefly shone on Mike's phone. I registered my name and a simple profile and started using it immediately. If Mike was using this app, it might unveil his true nature. I told Mike that I couldn't finish work and stayed overnight at a business hotel, then went to work directly from there, executing my plan. The next day, I took a personal day off and ventured out from the hotel into the city. I bought a brown long-haired wig and a hat, then uploaded my profile picture. Crafting my profile information so as not to be recognized, I quickly started searching for matches. Narrowing down by location, age, and interests, the number of potential matches decreased. I put in the name of a game that Mike likes, and all at once the number of matches was limited. Though unexpected, as I looked through profiles and icons, I discovered one that seemed to be Mike and easily matched with him. To avoid being discovered, I exchanged messages with him. In the app, Mike talked about being single, working for a certain company, and enjoying soccer and barbecues on his days off. Clearly, he didn't realize he was talking to me. I confirmed that Mike was using the app to meet up, and I went on my next mission. On Friday night, after returning home, I placed a lost item tag in our car, used by both of us. Just to be sure, I also placed it in the pocket of my cardigan left in the car. Then, I returned home, acting as if nothing had happened. Given Mike's frequent use of dating apps, he probably wasn't just talking to one person. I'm home. Work was crazy after that. Do you have any plans for this weekend, Mike?
I have to go out for work, so it doesn't look like I'll get the weekend off.
Really? That sounds tough. There's a sale going on, so I plan to go shopping by myself.
All right, have a good time.
As I said it, I glanced at Mike heading to the shower with his phone in his hand. In fact, I already knew that Mike had been searching on the family computer for tourist spots in the neighboring town. He had looked up ferry schedules, a delicious bakery, parks with nighttime views, and even hotels. Moreover, his search history included "she's the one" gift and fifth date proposal lines, so the woman he was planning to date this time must be his true love. I decided to make my move the following weekend.
Well, I'm going to work. You know, working on a day off is the worst.
That's true. Then you have a good day. After seeing Mike drive away, I started my move to catch him in the act of cheating. I booked a room in the hotel Mike had searched for and first monitored his movements from there. The lost item tag's movement confirmed he was indeed heading to the neighboring town. I watched the pin move to the ferry terminal and a chic cafe. Tonight, at the park with a night view, would be where I'd confront him. It was easy to imagine him parking the car near the park to enjoy the night view. I waited until evening to go to the park and looked around. Then, a familiar car entered the parking lot. Mike and a woman I don't know got out of her car. Mike had his arm around the waist of the unfamiliar woman, escorting her to a spot with a good view of the night scene. After watching Mike and the woman walk away from the car, I got into the back seat. Crouched under the seat, I waited for the two to return. Soon, the satisfied pair returned from viewing the night scene.
It was really beautiful. I'm thrilled to think about the wonderful night ahead with you,
Mike said as he sat in the driver's seat. The woman, presumably as a fair partner, took the passenger seat. I stood up from the back seat and put my hands around Mike's body like a hug. Hey, what's all this about? Mike turned around with a guilty look.
Well, it's just that.
So, you plan to propose to your girlfriend on the 5th date at this park with a view? Thought you could smoothly carry on with your affair? In the dim car, Mike's face drained of color. His pale face in the darkness was scarier than a ghost. You've been deceiving me and cheating? And you've been drugging drinks at the bar with your buddy bartender, haven't you?
What? Why would say that?
Mike was still flustered. Why? Want to know? At that moment, he fell silent, helpless. Your behavior at that bar was very weird. When I checked the reviews, there were several women who had gotten terribly drunk. That seemed odd because all the comments were from women.
So what do you want from me?
Mike still hasn't figured out his situation. He came out strong. Is that bartender your accomplice? He's quite the schemer. After visiting again, I spoke with a female apprentice who told me about the women you brought along.
The women I brought?
Yes, each time a different woman, all ending up barely able to walk, dead drunk. They say women get drunk faster than men, but isn't it strange to be that intoxicated at a bar? Mike bit his lip, at a loss for words. The woman working there thought it was just her imagination at first, but she began to see a pattern. She discreetly informed me.
Just because someone got drunk while I was there, you suspect me?
I was appalled by Mike's poor excuse. I pulled out a pen. It was the pen I had secretly placed in Mike's bag. This pen has a recording function. I turned it on, so it recorded what you talked about at the bar. You understand what this means, right? Mike's face turned pale. It was an expression I had never seen before. Without hesitation, I pressed the play button. The recording captured his gratitude for spiking the drinks to make them more intoxicating. I can't believe you did this. I can't trust you anymore. Overwhelmed by being called out, Mike reacted with furious anger.
You should be grateful I married a leftover like you, sneaking around like some detective.
Mike spat angrily, slamming his bag onto the ground. The woman next to him glared at me and said something outrageous.
You're the one binding Mike, aren't you? It's because of your insidious actions that you're disliked. I would never do such things.
The woman, who introduced herself as Julie, was obviously Mike's affair partner. She leaned close to him like a lover. And it's like a little puppy barking.
I knew he was married, but I'm more suitable for him. His other women were just flings. I'm the one who will be happy with Mike.
More suitable for him?
He works at a manufacturing company and is about to get promoted. He said I could be a stay-at-home wife, and he'd make the best husband.
She is a worker, but she doesn't seem to think about it. She was unaware of her mistake. The man you want to marry is about to be fired. Your future has been disfired. Julie's face showed shock, quickly turning to uproar.
That's a lie. Mike getting fired.
Do you say that because you are disappointed that I cheated on you?
I showed her a printout. I had to contact his company before. Turns out he lied about business trips to go on romantic getaways with you. The printout contained evidence of his false reporting, including schedules and fake business trip receipts. The company was shocked by his conduct and is about to terminate his employment contract.
Terminate the contract? But he's supposed to become an assistant manager.
I laughed at the absurdity. You didn't know the truth. He's just a contract employee. Julie looked lost, unsure of what to believe. I don't see the appeal of a man who gets women drunk for his pleasure and is just a temp worker, but if that's what you want, he's all yours.
No, I don't want a man who's getting fired.
Julie retorted, then tried to walk away from the passenger seat. I put my foot in front of Julie's. Julie fell hard and hit her face on the ground.
How could you do that?
You knew he was married and still pursued an affair, even trying to steal him away. You were prepared for the high cost of infidelity, right? Now Julie's face turned pale.
I'm a woman and can't pay alimony. I don't have that kind of money.
It's shameful to say you don't have money because you're a woman at your age. It's undoubtedly your own fault due to lack of ability.
Hey, you don't need to go that far.
Mike said, wrapping his arms around Julie defensively. I've had enough of your farce. A woman who robs married men. A man who conspires with a bartender to intoxicate women for his own desires. You two look great together. I walked away from Mike and Julie.
I'm a woman, so obviously I can't pay. Mike will take care of everything, right?
Hey, these days are gender equality. There's no men will or women can't anymore. Take care of your own issues.
How awful. Are you betraying me?
I heard the two arguing behind me. I was surprised to hear the word betray from Julie, but that no longer had anything to do with me. I returned home once and left with only the necessary luggage. Mike called many times wanting to reconcile, but I ignored all his attempts. Once, I answered thinking it was an unknown number, but it was Mike.
Please, let's not get divorced.
Are you in any position to say you don't want a divorce?
But I can't live if we divorce now. Wait until I find another job.
I sighed heavily. You want me to support you until you're re-employed? No way. Cry to your mistress. Then Mike yelled in desperation.
I can't do something that pathetic.
But I was not one to be intimidated. Pathetic? Who's the one that did such pathetic things to me? Mike fell silent. Anyway, I'll have my lawyer contact you. I was able to claim alimony through the lawyer. However, since Mike was jobless after contract termination, his parents had to cover for him. Now, he's working hard at a construction site from morning till night, as introduced by his parents. His bad attitude and snide remarks have made him a target of disdain among his seniors. As for Julie, she was fired from her job for having an affair and is known for shouting "I did nothing wrong" until the end, as I heard from a former co-worker. After that, Mike and I officially divorced, and I've been enjoying my life alone. Work and personal life are going well, and divorcing Mike was the best decision. Recently, as a tax accountant, I've been getting more clients, many of whom say, "I'm glad I asked for your help." When I hear that, I feel good about the work I do. Marrying Mike was a mistake, but it taught me to choose my own life, so I have no regrets. By chance, I met the apprentice from that bar at a mall's food court, and we hit it off. That encounter led us to occasionally meet for coffee. She shared how happy she was to use the sign language she learned in sign language club in such a way, which left a deep impression on me. Interestingly, she had no idea I was Mike's wife, making it a funny story we still talk about. Now, living my life without any issues, I think things turned out for the best.
My husband suddenly told me,
I have to go to work now. You'll have to walk to the hospital yourself.
"What?" I asked my husband, who was driving next to me, even though I was drowsy from a fever over 104 degrees Fahrenheit. We were on a nearly deserted and dimly lit street. My husband was in the middle of taking me to the hospital because I had developed a fever. Indeed, when I had asked him to take me, he looked displeased. But when I called the ambulance, he canceled it without asking, saying it was a bother over just a fever. As I was thinking about this, I realized that my husband had already stopped the car and came around to open the passenger door. Is he intending to drag me out? With my weak hands, I desperately clung to the passenger seat. But my resistance was futile. He dragged me out of the car and threw me outside. He snorted, returned to the driver's seat, and said, "Figure it out yourself. You can make it to the hospital if you walk for an hour, right? And don't bother strangers for help, got it?" Then he drove off immediately. "Please, stop, come back." I knew my cries wouldn't reach the car growing distant, and I didn't even have the strength to stand anymore, so I could only sob and weakly call for help. "Someone, please help me. My name is Naomi. I'm a 40-year-old housewife. I live in a small town in the Midwest with my husband, Daniel, and our 16-year-old son, Ethan. Daniel and I met through a friend's introduction. At the beginning of our relationship, Daniel always said, "I'll climb the ladder, just stick with me." Seeing his ambition, I thought marrying him would make me happy. I was happy at the beginning of our marriage. He worked for a well-known corporation and earned a good salary. We spent enjoyable days together, watching movies or going shopping on days off. However, as our son Ethan was born and grew, those days started to change. Firstly, Daniel never got involved in parenting. He never changed a diaper, nor did he ever bathe Ethan. He never participated in an open class at his son's school, even when he had time off. We've never even been on a family vacation together. In short, Daniel never did anything that could be considered fatherly. As a result, Ethan and Daniel hardly talk anymore. Of course, knowing that this wasn't right for a family, I had tried to mend our relationship. However, Daniel dismissed the attempts, claiming I was too tired from work to have a proper conversation, letting the matter slide without resolution. We lived together, and it gradually became clear that Daniel was a coward. Daniel's big talk wasn't driven by ambition, but was merely bluster. The words he said before we got married, "I'll climb the ladder, just stick with me," were just to ensure I wouldn't leave him for someone else. Indeed, Daniel earns more than the average man, but compared to his peers at the same company, he hasn't climbed very high in the hierarchy. It's not that I wanted him to succeed at all costs, but I couldn't help thinking that, if he was going to immerse himself in work to the detriment of his family, he should at least achieve more. One day, after sending Ethan off to his soccer club's morning practice, I was preparing Daniel's breakfast. Daniel came from the bedroom to the living room and stared intently at the breakfast laid out on the table. The menu was the usual: bacon and bread, along with hash browns and an omelet. Daniel sat down on the chair and started with the omelet. Then, frowning and knitting his brows, "What's this?" he muttered. What? Was something off? It's the same omelet as always. However, Daniel roughly set down the plate with the omelet and declared, "It's inedible," before getting up and leaving the table. Since then, he has been complaining about every meal I make. The lunches I packed for him were returned almost untouched, with the excuse they were too awful to eat. He said, "Don't feed me this stuff even though I'm tired from work," and he started to leave dinner untouched. And Daniel's complaints extended beyond cooking to laundry and cleaning as well. He told me to straighten the clothes more when hanging them on the balcony. He once touched the window frame with his finger and said, "There is so much dust." Despite doing the housework as usual, he suddenly started complaining like this. Moreover, when he complained about my housework, he'd say things like, "Other women would do a better job," as if he was comparing me to someone. It was clearly suspicious, and almost as if his comments came from closely observing another woman doing housework recently. Since then, his actions became suspicious, like taking his smartphone with him to the bathroom or shower, or whispering on the phone in his study. I wondered if he might be cheating. I tried to find proof by checking his bag or sneaking a peek at his phone after he went to sleep, but I found nothing. I considered hiring a private investigator, but since Daniel managed our finances, I didn't have the freedom to use money and had to give up on that idea. Weeks passed with these uneasy feelings. Conversations with Daniel dwindled even more, and living with constant complaints from him, I felt a great deal of stress. Could that be the reason? Maybe because of that, one night, I woke up feeling extremely hot and realized I had a high fever. Recently, Daniel and I had been sleeping in separate rooms, so I couldn't ask for help. I managed to crawl to the living room because I had left my phone in the living room. Feeling like my vision was fading, I might have been exaggerating, but I felt like my life was in danger. I should call an ambulance. Just as I thought that and reached for my phone on the living room table, Daniel happened to come into the living room.
What are you doing up in the middle of the night?
I mustered all my strength to explain, and Daniel silently took the phone from my hand. Might he call an ambulance for me? Feeling relieved with that thought, Daniel then uttered something unbelievable to me.
Calling an ambulance for just a fever? How embarrassing would that be if the neighbors found out? You can't even do housework properly, but bothering me is something you're good at. Go back to sleep. A fever will go away if you sleep.
Far from being concerned, Daniel snapped at me, and I protested through tears. Please, let me go to the hospital. If an ambulance is out of the question, then please take me in our car. I begged Daniel, clinging to him. I kept pleading, almost babbling, please, please. Despite his reluctance, Daniel seemed to give in to my persistence and agreed to drive me. Daniel was very reluctant at first, but it seemed he finally gave in to my persistence and agreed to drive me.
Oh, no, I have work tomorrow. What are you going to do about my lost sleep?
From the driver's seat, Daniel continued to grumble and complain the entire time. I rested my head against the rain-pelted passenger window, listening to him. 5 minutes after leaving home, Daniel's phone suddenly rang. He pulled over to the side of the road to answer it. After a brief exchange, he quickly ended the call. Then he said the following.
Now I have to go to work. You'll have to walk to the hospital from here.
What? Work? In the middle of the night?
Are you doubting me?
Daniel raised his voice, looking annoyed. Then go to work, but at least drop me off at the hospital first. It's not far by car. It was impossible to walk to the hospital in the heavy rain in my condition. I desperately clung to the passenger seat. But Daniel got out of the driver's seat, opened the passenger door with force, unbuckled my seat belt, and grabbed my shoulder.
Get out quickly.
With those words, Daniel dragged me out of the car as if he was throwing my body outside. I scraped my knees and palms with such force. It was dark, and I couldn't see well, but it felt like I was bleeding. It hurts, you know, I said to Daniel, but he just snorted, returned to the driver's seat, and drove off immediately. I could only watch helplessly as the car got smaller and smaller in the distance. The rain kept getting stronger, and it felt like my fever was rising. There was no one around on the night streets, and Daniel had taken my smartphone with him. My only option was to walk to the hospital. In a desperate state, I headed for the hospital. Since Daniel had contacted the hospital in advance, I was sure the staff would be waiting for me. Thinking that I shouldn't waste any more of their time or that of other patients, I walked to the hospital despite feeling dizzy and disoriented. I got lost and had to rest along the way, but by the time I finally made it to the hospital, 2 hours had passed since I left home. A trip that should have taken only 15 minutes by car. I made my way towards the entrance, aiming for the door. Then, through the glass doors, I locked eyes with a nurse. The moment we made eye contact, I felt a wave of relief and lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was lying in a hospital bed. It seemed like the medication and the intravenous drip had worked because my fever had gone down. As I stared blankly at the ceiling, I heard a familiar voice. It was my son's voice.
Mom, are you okay?
Ethan asked with a worried look on his face. Yes, I'm fine. Sorry for worrying you. Wait, why is Ethan here? As I pondered this question, Ethan smiled slightly and helped me sit up. To my surprise, Daniel was there too. He was sitting on a low chair, looking exhausted. His clothes were soaking wet, and his usually neat hair was a mess. as if he had been caught in a storm. For some reason, his legs were shaking uncontrollably. I wondered what had happened while I was unconscious.
Hey, you have something to say to Mom, don't you?
Ethan said to Daniel in a dismissive tone. Then Daniel jerked and shivered, lifting his face up. He looked gaunt, and the dark circles under his eyes were severe.
I'm sorry.
Daniel said in a small voice. Ethan looked a bit dissatisfied, but turned back to me and explained what had happened. After Daniel dragged me out of the car, he apparently went back home. Ethan, sensing something was wrong, had woken up and found it strange that I wasn't at home. When Daniel returned, Ethan asked him where I was, but Daniel tried to dodge the question. However, Ethan pressed him further until Daniel confessed to leaving me out in the rain. Ethan, being physically larger than Daniel, must have intimidated him. After a bit of arguing, the hospital called to inform Ethan that I had arrived safely. Ethan suggested to Daniel, "Let's go to the hospital to check on Mom now." But Daniel refused, saying, "I have work tomorrow." Ethan, furious, grabbed Daniel and insisted, "You walk to the hospital too." Faced with Ethan's threatening demeanor, Daniel, being watched by Ethan on his mountain bike, jogged through the rain to the hospital. Daniel, who usually commutes by car and dislikes exercise, must have found this extremely difficult. It's no wonder he was so worn out and exhausted. After finishing his explanation, Ethan looked at me seriously and said,
Mom, you should divorce this guy right away.
I was shocked by his words. Not because I didn't want to divorce. I was shocked that I had driven my son to say such a thing. I took Ethan's hand and apologized, saying, "I'm sorry." For a while after that, Daniel and I were in a Cold War state. I wanted to divorce, but there were financial concerns. As a housewife, I wasn't confident I could adequately support Ethan if we were to divorce. I wondered what Daniel thought about all this. A few weeks after I had a high fever. One day, the landline at home rang.
Hello? Are you Daniel's wife? My name is Amy, one of his employees.
Well, yes, that's me. Is there something you need? The woman who introduced herself as Amy said to me, who was bewildered.
Daniel and I are in love. So could you please divorce him quickly?
Amy was having an affair with Daniel. My previous suspicions of infidelity weren't misplaced. I would divorce him if I could. I found myself shouting that in response, almost instinctively. That was my true feeling. Take that lousy man if you want him. Will I be insulted? With that thought, I steeled myself and gripped the receiver tightly. But Amy exclaimed, "Really?" with a happy voice.
Then it's settled. I work for a major corporation, so I can pay any amount in compensation. If you give me your email address, I'll send you plenty of evidence of my affair with Daniel. You can use that to demand a divorce from him.
Caught off guard by the unexpected proposal, I was momentarily stunned, but I quickly regained my composure. There's no way I could pass up such an opportunity. I gave her my email address. And soon after, she sent me ample evidence of the affair. There were la vie de vie photos and screenshots of their rendezvous messages, more than enough to serve as proof. That evening, after making sure Ethan had fallen asleep, I approached Daniel, who was having a drink. "Hey, we need to talk." Daniel just said, "What?" without taking his eyes off the TV. I was irritated, turned off the TV, and slammed my hand on the table. Daniel turned to face me, angry. I presented something right in front of Daniel. A divorce form. Daniel's eyes widened in shock. "Let's get a divorce. It seems you have someone else who works for a major corporation and is good at housework."
What? Are you saying I'm cheating? If so, show me the proof.
Daniel said confidently, thinking he had covered his tracks. I met his challenge and presented all evidences Amy had sent me. His confident expression quickly fell, and he began to look like he was about to cry.
What? How do you have these? I deleted everything. A divorce would be embarrassing, right? And doesn't Ethan need a father? And money?
Daniel apparently doesn't want other people to think he got divorced because he cheated on his wife. How selfish of him. I'm not embarrassed at all. Besides, Ethan doesn't need a father like you. You've never done anything fatherly before. Don't start saying such things now. As for money, if you truly care about Ethan, you'll provide ample child support, won't you? Finally, Daniel seemed to realize I was serious about our divorce, holding his head and starting to sob. This isn't how it was supposed to go. Half a year later, Daniel and I were officially divorced. In the divorce, I demanded a fair division of assets, compensation for his infidelity, and ample child support for Ethan. Additionally, I demanded compensation for infidelity from Amy, the woman involved in the affair. Since the payments were made in lump sums from both parties, I had no immediate financial worries. I didn't want Ethan to go through the trauma of changing schools, so we moved to a nearby apartment, and now we are working together to make our lives work. It seems that Daniel and Amy started living together. However, both being busy with their jobs, they frequently argued over household chores, each trying to push responsibilities onto the other. Amy's efforts in housework were probably to show her best side to Daniel in an attempt to take him away from me. Once she had Daniel to herself, she likely felt comfortable revealing her true nature. Moreover, somehow, it became public knowledge that Daniel and Amy had an affair, tarnishing the reputation of the major corporation they worked for, and resulting in both of them being fired. They struggled to make ends meet after paying me the compensation in full, but that's none of my concern. Since divorcing Daniel, Ethan has become much brighter and more dedicated to his club activities.
I'll be a player for the first time in the upcoming match.
Watching him talk happily, I felt deep down that my decision was the right one.
What the heck? I don't get it. When I went to a town I don't usually visit for shopping, I witnessed my husband and my mother walking arm in arm, intimately and kissing in public without any regard for the onlookers. Shocked, I rushed over to confront them, but far from showing any remorse, they defiantly justified their actions. I immediately went to my parents' house, told my father about the two, and got a divorce. However, after my father passed away, I had to meet my mother and ex-husband again. Seeing my mother for the first time in a while, she was wearing loose clothing, and her belly was visibly swollen. Noticing my gaze, she smiled triumphantly.
"Oh, did you notice? I'm carrying a child. Seems like you waited forever but couldn't have one, huh?"
Unlike you, we managed to have a child right away. Now I can finally become a father. Breaking up with you was a good thing.
They hurled insults at me, intending to hurt me as much as possible. However, their plan backfired. Unfortunately for them, I wasn't hurt at all. "Oh, that's hilarious. You two are such idiots." I laughed so hard I had to hold my stomach. My name is Mia, and I'm a 24-year-old office worker. My parents had me when they were very young, in what you'd call a shotgun wedding. Both of them were quite flashy in their youth. My mother, Linda, was just 16, still in high school, when she met my father, Kevin, a construction worker 4 years her senior, and had me. Their love story began when my mother fell head over heels for my father and aggressively pursued him until he gave in, and they started dating. Soon after, she got pregnant with me, and they got married. Getting married as a high school student was frowned upon by society, but since my mother was already pregnant with me, they had no choice but to accept it. The early days of their marriage seemed to go well. When I was in kindergarten, my father would often come to pick me up on his days off from work due to rain.
Your dad is so young and cool. Right? I love my dad. He's so kind.
I loved walking home under the same umbrella with my dad, talking about our day. However, an incident struck my father, changing my mother's attitude towards him drastically. My father fell while dismantling scaffolding at work, sustaining serious injuries. Injuries include full-body bruising and complex fractures. When his body became disabled, my mother turned cold. Fortunately, he survived, but he was left with lasting physical impairments, making it impossible for him to continue his construction job. Thanks to rehabilitation, my father managed to walk again and, through a friend, found employment at a company. However, he needed long-term rehabilitation. During this time, my mother refused to have anything to do with him, from attending medical appointments to everyday assistance. She even ignored him when he fell in the hallway, or threw sarcastic comments his way.
Showing off by falling. Pathetic. Marrying this burden was a mistake. I should have dated more men before settling down.
When I was a kid, my mom would constantly grumble about my dad, as if it were her catchphrase. But to me, it just looked like she was picking on him. And honestly, I didn't really like her for that. Due to my father's limited work capacity, our family wasn't exactly wealthy. My mother worked nights, so I spent more time with my dad during the day and was closer to him than to my mother. Perhaps because my mother noticed this, or maybe she was never fond of kids to begin with, she mostly neglected me, providing only the bare minimum care. I managed to graduate high school, but instead of going to college, my mother told me to work to help with the family finances, so I ended up taking a job at a local company.
I'm sorry, Mia. It's because of my condition that you have to bear this burden.
Don't say that. I'm happy to work if it helps you, Dad. My father apologized for not being able to send me to college, feeling guilty. Although I hated to comply with my mother's demands, I worked hard for my father. A few years after I started working, I married my colleague, John. I didn't want a cold marriage like my parents had. I wanted to build a warm home with him.
I'll take care of you, Mia. Let's be happy together. I want lots of kids too.
I was so happy to hear those words that I accepted his proposal right away. However, a year into our marriage, there was no sign of us having children. I wanted children too, but no matter how long we waited, there were no signs of pregnancy. John started to pressure me, as if it was all my fault.
Damn. Why can't we have kids? All my coworkers already have children. It must be something wrong with your body. What a letdown for a wife.
Don't say that. It's not just my issue. I want you to come with me to the gynecologist for a checkup.
What? Why do I have to go through such trouble? I've always been healthy. Never even caught a cold. It's obviously your fault we can have kids.
My husband blamed me alone and wouldn't even listen to the suggestion of fertility treatment. Instead, he berated me for not being able to have children because of me.
Stop making excuses and get treated at a hospital already. It's embarrassing for me that we're married and can't have kids.
He wouldn't listen to me at all, just blamed me one-sidedly. Still clinging to a sliver of hope, I pursued fertility treatments alone, but there was no sign of us having a child. And then John started coming home less and less. He said he was busy with work and started coming home in the morning more frequently. Is it really work? Could he be cheating, now that I think about it? I had several reasons to suspect my husband. There were times when I could smell women's perfume on his clothes when he came home in the morning. Not just once, but several times. Moreover, when I checked the credit card statements, there were charges for unexplained expenses that further fueled my suspicions. However, I thought confronting him directly would only lead to evasive answers, so I waited for the right moment to talk, and that moment came soon enough. It happened when I went out to a town I usually don't visit for shopping. I saw my husband, although he said he had to work on this holiday. Is that John? But he's supposed to be at work today. I was about to call out to him when I noticed a woman walking beside him. What? Why is my mom walking with John? There, walking beside him with a smile, was my mother. Since getting married, I had distanced myself from my mother. I had visited my father at home, but rarely brought my husband there. There was supposed to be no contact between my husband and my mother after our marriage greetings. Curious, I watched them without calling out, and to my shock, they held hands and kissed right in front of me. What? This makes no sense. I ended up raising my voice. They didn't notice me, stunned, and continued walking away. Finally, I couldn't hold back and shouted, "Hey, John, Mom, what are you doing?" When I caught up and called them out, they were visibly surprised to see me.
Oh, what's the matter, Mia? You seem so flustered.
It's not, what's the matter? What are you guys doing?
What do you mean? I just happened to meet John here, so we were just saying hi, since it's been a while. Is there a problem with that?
It seemed my mother was pretending to be oblivious. Seeing my mother dressed youthfully, you wouldn't think she was over 40 if not told. And then, getting closer to my mother, I realized something. This scent, I've smelled it before. The perfume my mother was wearing was familiar. It was the same scent I smelled on my husband's clothes when he returned home late. I didn't want to believe it, but I was convinced that my mother was my husband's affair partner. Don't lie, I saw you two kissing just now.
What? You must be mistaken. We just bumped into each other, that's all.
When pressed, the two exchanged a fleeting look of panic, but after a moment of silence, John admitted defeat and spoke.
Oh, man, I never thought we'd get caught this early. Why are you even here?
What's that supposed to mean?
You're so oblivious. I thought we could have kept it under wraps a bit longer, but to think you were watching. Well, as you've guessed, I actually prefer older women.
Sorry, I did feel bad for you, but I've been into John since we first met.
My mom and husband unabashedly said something unbelievable.
We just happened to bump into each other one day, had a lunch, and, well, one thing led to another. I'm still young, after all, I want to experience love.
Our relationship was already strained, and as I confided in her, the more we talked, the more I was drawn to her.
Yeah, I heard about it. Mia. Having trouble conceiving, huh? John really wanted a boy. And because of you.
Can't believe you'd say that to Mom.
Well, it's true, isn't it? Your body's the reason we can have kids.
Unbelievably, it seemed my husband had shared everything, even our most private issues, with my mother. Struggling alone with infertility, my husband blamed me as if he were the victim, despite never listening to my concerns. Fury bubbled up within me, realizing there was no way I could continue this marriage. The audacity. Do you even realize what you're doing? I yelled at them, as they were nonchalantly making excuses.
Can't help it. It's because you're a failure as a wife and a woman.
Excuse me, I'm better off without a husband like you. I want a divorce.
Fine by me. To be honest, I've been over you for a while. Always excuses, no kids. I'll be relieved to be rid of a defective product like you.
Oh, I didn't intend for this to happen, but I guess I ended up taking your precious husband. Sorry about that.
Despite clearly not feeling sorry, my mother offered a hollow apology. Mom, if Dad finds out about your affair, you'll be divorced too. Be prepared. Her complexion changed upon my words, but she quickly reverted to her smug demeanor.
Well, like there's no proof of the affair. You and John getting divorced is your business, but I'll divorce when I please. Come on, John, let's go.
Urged by my mother, they left me behind in haste. Despite their affair, unlike John, my mother didn't seem eager to divorce my father immediately. I went straight to my parents' house and told my dad everything.
So, I endured all these years thinking you needed a mother, even if she was that kind of woman. But to disregard her daughter like this.
My father grimaced at my report. I'm divorcing John. I can't stay with him after what he's done. What will you do about Mom?
Don't worry, I have a plan. I won't let them have their way.
John later sent a completed divorce form by mail, which I signed, finalizing our divorce. My mother didn't return home after that, apparently eloping with John. Despite my anger, my father advised me to forget them both, and I decided to let go of my ex-husband and mother. I then moved out of the apartment I shared with John and returned to my childhood home. My father had become quite self-sufficient. Ironically, thanks to my mother's neglect.
Despite everything, I'm happy to live with you again. Thanks for coming back.
I enjoyed a brief period of peace with my father, but it didn't last. He contracted a widespread pneumonia and suddenly became gravely ill.
Mia, I am sorry for all the hardships. Live your life as you wish from now on.
On the brink of death, my father firmly held my hand and told me this. Tears welled up as I nodded in agreement. Despite medical efforts, his condition rapidly worsened, and he passed away. Dad, I wish I had been a better daughter before you left us so suddenly. As I prepared for his funeral, an unexpected visitor arrived.
Long time no see. Heard he's gone.
My mother and John, my ex-husband, were there. They stood at the door with disdainful smiles, barging into the house. What do you want now? Just go away.
What? And who do you think you are? He and I are married, you know. It's only natural for a wife to rush over when her husband dies.
To think you'd say such a thing after eloping and not contacting anyone for years.
Oh well, say whatever you want. But no matter how much you scream and shout, I'm still his widow, which means I have a right to the inheritance. There was insurance too, wasn't there?
I can't believe it. That's why you never divorced Dad. After suffering an injury, Dad retired from his construction job and worked hard at a company he joined later, eventually reaching a respectable position before he passed away. Despite having no formal education, it must have been the grit he developed during his days as a craftsman. He had many subordinates who admired him for his caring nature.
All the more reason not to divorce. Now let's talk about dividing up the assets. He wasn't one for material desires, so I know he saved quite a bit. Let's see.
Mom said this as she approached me. Suddenly, I realized something. Mom, in her loose clothing, her belly was clearly swollen. Noticing my gaze, she smiled triumphantly.
Oh, you noticed? Yes, I'm carrying John's child. It seems you've been waiting for one you could never have. I'll bear the child in your stead.
Different from you. I had a child easily. Now I can finally become a father. Breaking up with you was really for the best.
The two of them hurled the most hurtful words they could at me. However, their plan backfired. Unfortunately for them, I wasn't hurt in the slightest. Oh, this is hilarious. Both of you look so foolish. I couldn't help but laugh, holding my stomach. The two of them looked at me, dumbfounded.
What's so funny?
Because it's ridiculous. Hey, I hate to say it, but are you sure that child is really John's? At my words, John asked, "What?" as if offended, but Mom's demeanor suddenly changed. Bryce darted around, clearly flustered. But John seemed oblivious to it.
It's definitely my child. Don't say such nonsensical things out of spite.
Yes, that's right. Don't be sore losers.
Whether it's a sore loser's talk or not, this will clarify everything. I stepped away and retrieved a document I had kept, thrusting it in front of them.
What's this all of a sudden? What is this?
What are you so surprised about? It can't be that. Huh? What does this mean?
The two were shocked by the content of the document. It was a report from a private investigator detailing Mom's social interactions. After Mom eloped with John, I happened to see her in town. She was with a young man I didn't recognize, not John. Following them secretly, they entered a hotel together. What does this mean? Could it be that mom is? I talked with my father before he passed and decided to investigate mom's behavior. I thought it might be useful someday. The investigation confirmed that mom was indeed involved with a man other than John. John, with a look of disbelief, frantically reads through the documents. There, detailed information about his mother and her boyfriend is written. John, reading the report with disbelief, glared at mom next to him after finishing it.
What is this report about? Were you deceiving me?
That's absurd. Mia is lying. The baby is definitely yours.
Despite being flustered, mom insisted the baby was John's.
Who do you believe, Mia or me?
Well, that's. Since you couldn't have a child, you're framing your own mother. What a terrible woman.
John was persuaded by mom, regaining his composure. Declaring the report a lie, they turned their blame towards me, ignoring their own issues. You're free to believe what you want, but sadly, I have definitive proof. You can come out now. I called out towards the room next to the living room, where I currently was. Then the door opened, and a man walked in.
Who the heck is that guy?
Who? I don't know him either.
Both of them were puzzled by the appearance of this unfamiliar man. This man is my husband. It's natural you wouldn't know, but I remarried. His name is Bob. I had divorced John a year ago and remarried him, whom I met through a friend.
What proof does this man provide?
Unlike my mother, it may not be visible yet, but I also have a baby in my belly. Of course, it's his child.
So what? Say it clearly.
Still don't get it. I couldn't have a baby no matter how hard we tried when we were married, but with him, with Bob, I got pregnant right away. John's eyes widened as he seemed to grasp the implication of my words. You were too lazy to go to the hospital, but I got checked properly and knew there was nothing wrong with my fertility. So the problem with not having kids was you.
No, that can't be. You're lying.
But it's strange, isn't it? Supposed to be hard to have children, yet my mother is pregnant. I wonder if it's really your child. When I posed that question, John could not retort and glared at Linda next to him.
Hey, speak the truth.
Well, fine, you win.
Oh, you admitted it quite fast. I thought you'd try to deceive us more.
It was just a fling with John.
What? What do you mean?
I was with you because you were Mia's husband. You know, wanting what belongs to someone else. But my true love was another man. I was planning to break up with you soon.
John was shocked by his mother's words and stood dumbfounded.
I wanted to enjoy messing around with men until I got caught. Well, it doesn't matter. Whether or not the child I'm carrying is his, my right to inherit his wealth remains unchanged.
Are you still talking about that? Unfortunately, you'll have to give up on that.
What? How many times do I have to say the same thing? I wasn't divorced from my deceased husband, so I have the right to inherit.
That's what I'm telling you. You have no such right. Because you and Dad were divorced a long time ago.
What? That can't be.
Maybe you've forgotten because you're getting older, but Dad had the divorce papers you filled out. When I reported my mother's affair to my father, what he took out was a set of divorce papers. According to Dad, after a major fight when he became unable to work due to an injury, Mom had said, "I don't need a husband who can't move," and thrust the filled out divorce papers at him. Though he didn't submit them at the time because of me, Dad had used those papers to divorce her before he died. So, Mom, you won't get a penny of Dad's estate. Do you understand now?
That's impossible.
Seeing her face turn pale, the mother, who had been so confident just moments ago, is now visibly shaken. John was still glaring at her.
I'll be leaving.
After realizing her affair was exposed, and she wouldn't receive any inheritance, my mother fled the house as if escaping. Later, my mother gave birth to a boy, but it was clear, even without a DNA test, based on blood types, that he wasn't John's child. John, saying, "I never thought she was such a whore," abandoned my mother when she no longer had any inheritance coming her way, and disappeared. The man my mother truly wanted, her affair partner, also fled upon learning of her pregnancy, as he was only in it for a casual relationship. In the end, my mother became a single mother at 40. She is raising a child on her own with no one to rely on, surviving on government support. Being an older mother, taking care of a young child was physically demanding, and she appeared significantly aged. I once saw my mother from a distance, carrying her child. Her appearance, now with more gray hair, looked more like a grandmother than a mother. Meanwhile, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and now our family of 3 lives happily together. Thinking about it, my mother's child is my brother, and he will be in the same grade as my daughter, which is quite complicated. On the anniversary of my father's death, we plan to visit his grave as a family of 3. The betrayal of my ex-husband and mother was painful, but it allowed me to find an irreplaceable family. You're watching over us from heaven, aren't you? Surely, Dad up in heaven is rejoicing over the birth of his grandchild. Holding on to the love Dad gave us, we vow to continue walking closely as a family.
Please forgive someone like me. Goodbye.
The day after giving birth, what was next to my pillow was a suicide note from my husband. The shock was too much for me postpartum, and my mind went blank. Later, my husband's shoes were found at the edge of the cliff. After that, I was just barely getting by, living with my daughter, Alice, and before I knew it, 5 years had passed. I found solace in the growing, radiant smile of Alice. However, when I attended my friend's wedding, something shocking happened. Surprisingly, standing next to the bride was my husband. Dressed in a tuxedo, he had the same smile as before, standing there, supposedly having thrown himself into the sea. Why was he here? From there, I came to learn an unexpected truth, and as a result, his life took a downward turn. 5 years ago, at 35, I was working as a nail technician with regular clients. Dreaming of owning my own shop someday, I was working hard while saving up. Concerned about me being so focused on work and without a boyfriend, my best friend Sarah invited me to a mixer.
Emily, it's great that you're dedicated to your work, but you haven't given up on marriage or having kids, right? If so, you've got to seek out some encounters.
Encouraged by words from Sarah, a friend from high school who I've had a complicated relationship with, I decided to join, thinking it might be good for a change. And so, my life took a significant turn. At the mixer, I had an unexpectedly good encounter. We hit it off as if we'd known each other forever, and soon started dating. His name was Michael Thompson, a 38-year-old businessman. Both of us being in our late 30s, we were dating with the intention of getting married. But within 6 months, it found out I was pregnant. Michael, I think I'm pregnant.
What? Really?
The moment I told him, I thought I saw a startled look on his face, but he quickly smiled and hugged me. We decided to have the wedding after the baby was born and things settled down. And before that, we talked about getting legally married and starting to live together. However, during the move, my morning sickness worsened, and there were days I couldn't get out of bed.
We should get married sooner, so just sign the marriage application, and I'll submit it to the clerk's office.
I wanted to go together. Sorry.
Don't worry, just dress for the baby.
I was always enveloped in his kindness. Yet, there was one concern. It was about my parents. Living in the countryside and concerned about social appearances due to their jobs, they had been pressing me about marriage whenever they saw me. I can't stand that, and I had stopped contacting them for a while. But when we announced the shotgun wedding, I'm expecting some disapproving looks from them again. As expected, when I contacted them, my father yelled, "It's shameful, don't come back home." Though I anticipated it, such a situation still brought me down, compounded by morning sickness, making every day gloomy. I gradually started missing work, spending most of my days in bed, unable to handle household chores, and settling for the bare minimum when it came to meals. I'm sorry, I couldn't do anything today either.
Test again.
As days went by, Michael, who was supposed to be kind, began to change. Even though I was in the midst of a blissful newlywed life, and we were about to welcome a baby soon, things hadn't turned out the way I envisioned, and all I feel was a sense of urgency. At this rate, I might not become a good wife or a good mother. Every day, struggling with nausea in bed and shedding tears was truly hellish. Yet, more troubles began. Michael started coming home late, and his time at home decreased. Moreover, on the rent due date, there was no payment from Michael. We had agreed to split the rent in half when we started living together, and the rent was set up for automatic payment from my account, which I signed the lease for the apartment. But there had not been a single transfer from him. "Hey, did you forget to transfer money for the rent? What's happening with it?"
Just wait a bit longer. There's been a lot of drinking and entertainment this month. I'm in a bit of a financial pinch.
Every time I checked, he'd say that and put off the payment. And in the end, it was almost like I was the one paying the rent. Moreover, as payday approached, he'd increasingly ask me for loans. But I'm not able to work right now, and considering the future, I'd like to set aside our savings. Due to the morning sickness, I was practically on leave, and had reluctantly started dipping into my savings to open a nail salon. But I really wanted to keep that saved up.
The thing is, I had an unexpected business dinner at a fancy restaurant, and I'm in a pinch this month.
But shouldn't that be covered by the company's expenses?
It doesn't work that way. Plus, landing this contract now could significantly affect my promotion. Please.
He said that if he gets promoted and earns more, it would be easier to support the family, so I had no choice but to agree. But then I noticed an unfamiliar watch on Michael's wrist. "Hey, Where did you get that watch?
Notice, cool, isn't it? I've been eyeing this watch for a while.
He showed it off to me, almost like a child bragging about a treasure. That's not the point. How much did that cost?
What's it to you? I bought it with my own money. Stop nagging.
Despite me paying the full rent and even lending him money, what was he thinking? I couldn't help but snap at him. Before spending money on such things, you should have discussed it with me. You're about to become a father. When I, usually quiet, unexpectedly raised my voice, he looked surprised and then awkwardly apologized.
Sorry, I'll be better from now on, okay?
Seeing him apologize sincerely made me wonder if everything would be all right once the baby arrived, but I had a vague sense of unease. After that, the days my husband returned home became even fewer. And as the pregnancy entered the late stages, an unexpected situation arose during a prenatal checkup.
What? Hospitalization? From now?
At the checkup, they said it's a threatened preterm labor. There were still about 2 months to the due date, but the doctor advised me to be hospitalized to keep the baby in as long as possible. I was taken aback by the sudden turn of events, but determined to do my best to protect my baby, so I have mentally prepared myself for a long-term hospitalization. And there I was, on the bed, looking forward to the birth of my unborn baby. But admittedly, the days of doing nothing but rest were boring. During this time, my salvation was my best friend Sarah visiting me often. She was currently working at a detective agency specializing in infidelity investigations, and would make me laugh by sharing funny and interesting stories from her work, within the limits of what she could tell.
So, cheating always gets discovered, huh?
That's right. When I fell silent, Sarah looked at me intently.
Don't tell me Michael is cheating.
It's not like that, but I ended up spilling all the incidents that had been bothering me.
Leaving home that often, Michael's actions are suspicious.
Seeing Sarah mutter with a serious expression, I thought, I knew it. Deep down, I had been suspecting it, but chose to look away.
Just to make it sure, did you confirm if your marriage application was actually submitted?
What? I haven't checked it, but no way that could be. Sarah's unexpected words shocked me. I had never harbored such doubts.
Some men do that. I'm not sure about Michael, but it's better to check it.
Torn between feeling wrong to doubt my husband and wanting to clear my uneasy thoughts, I was indecisive. Then, Sarah suddenly stood up.
An administrative proxy can check it, so I'll go to the clerk's office right now to find out for you. It's better to clarify these matters.
She had me write the necessary documents for a proxy application and quickly left the room with her bag. It's okay, the marriage application must have been submitted. Just confirming that will ease my mind. Waiting as if to reassure myself, Sarah returned within an hour.
Here.
What she handed me was my family register, and there was no record of me being married to Michael. This can't be.
Then, why not ask him directly?
And so, I decided to ask him when he visited the maternity wardroom the next day. When he arrived, he was smiling as usual. Despite my conflicting emotions, I knew I had to clear things up for the sake of our child. Hey, did you actually submit the marriage application?
What?
His face changed color instantly, and he fell silent, seemingly deep in thought. After a while, he began to speak.
To tell you the truth, I wanted to submit it together with you, so I decided not to go through with it.
He went to the clerk's office, but he changed his mind, thinking my condition would surely improve soon. Then you should have just told me that at the time.
I know, but after that, a lot of things happened.
He got wrapped up in some financial troubles, which also led to him being unable to make rent payments.
Feeling inadequate about becoming a father. So I wanted to wait until this matter was settled before having a proper conversation with you.
I couldn't say anything to him as he spoke with a downcast face.
I'm sorry for making you anxious, especially with our child on the way.
At that moment, he began to cry, and I could only pat his back. I had no idea he was going through such a hard time in silence. As his wife, I need to support him. After that, my husband rarely came to visit and stopped responding to my messages. I thought maybe he was too embarrassed and needed some space, so I decided not to press the issue and just wait. Despite everything, my belly continued to grow, and the day of delivery has finally arrived. I've started having contractions in the midnight, and by morning, our daughter was born, a healthy baby weighing over 6 pounds and 9 ounces. I managed to contact Michael, and he came, but he seemed distant and wouldn't make eye contact with me. It surely bothered me, however, after enduring a challenging night and facing the proof of overcoming intense pain, I felt an overwhelming sense of happiness that made everything else fade away. Holding my small, helpless child, I was overwhelmed with emotion and tears of joy. I'm so glad you were born safely. Michael held Alice with a complicated look on his face. The day after giving birth, what was next to my pillow was a suicide note from my husband.
To Emily, you might be surprised by the sudden letter, but these are my true feelings.
The letter was filled with his agonized cries. At that time, he hadn't clearly explained, but it turned out he had fallen victim to a scam, lost all our savings, and was being chased by debt collectors. Thinking of our upcoming child and family, he saw no other way out.
If I continue to live, I'd just be a burden. That's why I intend to jump off a famous cliff known for suicides. Please forgive me. Goodbye.
His last words were shocking, leaving me unstable after giving birth, in a daze. Rushing to the police, Michael's shoes were found at a famous cliff, presumed to have jumped into the sea, leaving me in tears. Despite a search, his body was never found. His whereabouts remained unknown, and I filed a missing person report, holding onto a sliver of hope that he would return someday. Before I knew it, 5 years had passed. During this time, all I could do was struggle through life, holding Alice. Fortunately, when I informed my parents of the birth of my daughter, they came to visit, and we reconciled. Thanks to my parents doting on my firstborn daughter Alice, I managed to get by even as a single mother. Now I'm balancing childcare and work, fighting to achieve my dream of opening my own shop. Sarah has been a great support, frequently visiting and taking me and Alice out for shopping and fun. Then an invitation from a high school buddy, Olivia Johnson, reached to me. In high school, Olivia, Sarah, and I were always together. Olivia, a CEO's daughter, had moved to Japan after high school due to her parents' business, and we had lost touch since then. She had returned to the United States before we knew it, and we were really surprised when we received an invitation to her wedding reception.
Olivia's getting married. I wonder who the lucky guy is.
Sarah called me excitedly, but I had no idea either. Maybe she met someone in Japan, or perhaps he's some corporate heir. We were both looking forward to reuniting with our friend after so long. On the day of the wedding, the venue's luxury and decoration were a testament to Olivia being a CEO's daughter. I remember Michael used to work for a company under the Johnson Group. I quietly murmured such a thing in my mind. As the lights dimmed and music played, the spotlight fell on the doors, which slowly opened. Seeing Olivia after a long time, she hasn't changed much, and her smile brightened up the surroundings like the cheerful spring sunshine making flowers bloom, reminding me of the old times. However, the moment I saw the groom standing next to her, my heart froze. What, Michael? Surprisingly, standing next to Olivia was my husband, who was supposed to have disappeared by jumping into the sea the day after Alice was born. Why is he here? And why with Olivia? I never imagined reuniting under these circumstances. Seeing him standing there in a tuxedo, smiling just like before, I was thrown into confusion. Why on earth? As I stood there, feeling like I was seeing a ghost, Sarah next to me spoke up.
Isn't that Michael?
I was thinking the same thing. That smile is just like Michael's. The slight lift of the left corner of his lip. I'm sure it's him. If even Sarah, who works at a detective agency, says so, then I was convinced at that moment it had to be my husband.
What's going on here? He was supposed to have jumped into the sea.
Yay, it's unbelievable. If that suicide note was a lie, then not entirely out of the realm of possibility. I'm filled with the desire to catch him immediately and uncover the truth, the man who disappeared, leaving behind me and our newborn daughter. Yet I decided to hold back for now, not wanting to ruin my friend's wedding. I whispered to Sarah, who seemed eager to get to the bottom of this. I have a favor to ask.
What is it? Anything?
I want to know what Michael has been doing during these missing 5 years. Can you help me? She grinned and gave me a thumbs up.
Of course, I would have investigated even if you hadn't asked me.
I'm counting on you. The very next day, we began looking into Michael. Sarah even took time off work to start tailing Michael. As we dug deeper, we stumbled upon a shocking truth. I can't believe Michael was such a person. I was hit with a wave of shock so intense, I almost crumbled.
I know it's shocking, but now that you know everything, you're not going to let this slide, are you?
Of course not. There's no way I'd let this slide. With that, we decided to take action against Michael. A few days later, we attended a party meant to introduce Michael, Olivia's husband, to everyone. We had gotten the invitations through a certain way. As I was looking for Michael somewhere in the spacious venue, I found a two in the center of a circle of people.
Emily, there he is. What do we do? He's surrounded by so many people.
Well, then we have no choice but to confront him head on.
Wait, head on, Emily, wait a sec.
Not even hearing her restraint, I took one step closer to him, clacking my heels as I went. As I came into Michael's view, his surprised expression froze. As I approached with a smile on my face, Olivia noticed me and said, "Emily, thank you for coming today." "You're welcome, Michael, long time no see." As I smiled at him, his face, which had been smiling until then, suddenly contorted. "Michael, why are you here? Weren't you supposed to have jumped off a cliff?" My loudly feigned surprise drew the attention of everyone around us. Olivia also pressed, "What's going on? Michael, you know Emily."
Well, that is.
The sudden turn of events caused a stir, and Michael started to panic visibly. "Olivia, you might not believe this, but listen. This man, Michael, was supposed to be my husband up until 5 years ago." As Olivia grasped Michael's chest and shook him violently, asking, "What does that mean, Michael?" He just looked bewildered, with his eyes rolled. There I laid out the events of 5 years ago for everyone to hear, not hiding a thing. How he disappeared the day after I gave birth to our child, leaving behind a suicide note before jumping off a cliff. Ever since, I've been living my life to the fullest. The murmur in the room quieted down, and I could tell everyone was listening to me. But if Michael is alive and well, that means the suicide note was just for show, right? I stood in front of him and pointed. "You left us because you wanted to marry Olivia." Michael, avoiding my gaze, turned pale. Whispers of "why would he go that far?" started circulating among the crowd. Olivia glared at him. "So you were dating both of us at the same time, got scared of the responsibility when I got pregnant, and ran away. You were actually planning to marry Olivia for her money."
That's.
Michael, pale as a ghost, desperately looked for a way out, but when Olivia's father showed up, he just sat down, cradling his head. I went on to expose his secrets. "Plus, it seems like you have debts from gambling since you were with me, amounting to over $50,000, right?" Olivia confronted him. "I never heard such a thing." And Michael started panicking.
I was going to tell you. I swear. I had a plan to pay it all back. I was planning to tell you after I paid it all back.
Was that plan to marry Olivia and become a CEO? Michael fell silent at my accusation, glaring at me sharply. 5 years ago, it seems like you got drunk and were bragging to people at the bar. You were boasting about playing both sides, maybe even becoming a CEO if things worked out, and you didn't even plan to marry me. Sarah, the detective, had gathered these testimonies that I couldn't have found on my own. I thrust the investigation report right under his nose. Then he brazenly snatched the report from me and started tearing it up, as if he didn't care.
You don't think you can get away with this scot-free. It was a mistake to get involved with you. If only you hadn't gotten pregnant.
His plan foiled. He looked like he was about to jump on me any second with an angry demeanor. Truly the lowest. I'll be contacting a lawyer for a divorce and child support, so be prepared. You can come out wherever you want when you try to run this time.
This wasn't supposed to happen. Everything was going so well.
As he hit the floor with his fist in frustration, Olivia slowly approached him and declared, "That's my line. I can't trust you anymore. What Emily was saying is true."
No, wait. This is all her fabrication.
Michael pleaded with Olivia, but her decision was firm. After all, Sarah and I had met with Olivia beforehand and told her the truth. That's why she had sent us the invitation for today. When Olivia shook off Michael's hand, she stood beside Sarah and me, giving Michael a cold stare.
Come on, Olivia, think it over.
Later, Michael was sobbing, apologizing to her, but after being scolded by her father, he finally calmed down. Furthermore, Michael, who worked at Olivia's company, got the boot straight from the CEO himself and lost everything.
It's because of you, Emily, that I couldn't become the CEO.
This is all on you. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I'm also a CEO's daughter.
What? You are?
He looked utterly baffled by this sudden revelation. The truth was, my father also ran a company and planned to pass it on to me or my future husband. That's why my parents kept pushing me to get married for one reason or another, always going on about how it would look bad to others. I got estranged from my parents because I got pregnant too soon and never found the right moment to tell you. But well, it turned out for the best.
So, if I had married you, I could have become a CEO.
Suddenly, Michael grabbed my hand and kneeled.
Let's start over. A child needs a father, right?
No way. I'd never want someone like you as a father. I don't ever want to see your face again. Michael, taken aback by my outright laughter, was left speechless and in shock. Leaving him behind, Olivia, Sarah, and I left the venue together. After that, Olivia and Michael got divorced. Olivia's father was furious, vowing to claim alimony by any means necessary. I also filed for alimony and child support through a lawyer. Michael ended up with over $150,000 in debt, working tirelessly day and night, looking worn out. Meanwhile, I've been having enjoyable times having lunch with Olivia and Sarah. Furthermore, at 40, I've achieved my dream of owning my own shop. Lately, my 5-year-old Alice has started showing interest in nails, playing nail salon games with me. In those moments of my beloved daughter's endless smiles, I simply felt the joy of being alive, as a serene calmness washed over my heart.
15 years ago, I divorced my husband after discovering his affair with a childhood friend, with whom he even had a child. The affair partner harassed me to the point of quitting my job. At my lowest, my current husband rescued me, and we built a happy, peaceful home. However, my tranquility was short-lived. Recently, I encountered my ex-husband for the first time in 15 years.
You must still be single, right? Who'd marry a barren woman like you?
You still can't say anything nice, can you?
My son is cute, just like his mom.
Looking down at me with a smug smile, my ex-husband boasted about his child. I replied, "Oh really? What a cute child. Speaking of which, let me introduce you to my children as well. My introduction of my son left my ex-husband stunned and trembling. I'm Caroline Jones, 38 years old. I'm living with my 13-year-old son, Liam, my 11-year-old daughter, Emma, and my husband, Ethan, who is the same age as me. Liam, in his first year of middle school, is right in the thick of his rebellious phase. Lately, he's been quite cheeky and a handful, but when he really doesn't listen, my husband Ethan steps in and sets him straight. Emma, on the other hand, is all about makeup and fashion. As the youngest and a girl, she's quite adept at getting her way. Liam, who adores his younger sister Emma, quickly panics when she playfully threatens, "If you're not nice to Mom, I'll start disliking you, big brother." He hurriedly apologizes, Sorry. Look, I'll be nice to Mom, okay?" He's a straightforward and easily understood charmer, always the one to liven up any situation. I lead a bustling yet joyful life. But there's a detail many are unaware of. I'm a divorcee, now in my second marriage. I ended up divorcing due to my ex-husband's despicable betrayal. 15 years ago, my ex-husband, whom I'll call Michael, was my senior at the university. We had many mutual friends and were blessed with good wishes from everyone around us, so everything seemed smooth and promising. Early in our marriage, we often talked about how much we wanted kids, saying things like, "I really want a child soon, and it would be nice to have matching outfits when we have kids." Both of us were really looking forward to having children. However, reality didn't go as smoothly, and even after a year had passed, we still weren't blessed with a child. Every month, the arrival of my period led to a bit of friction in our marriage. Neither my husband or I thought it was good, so we had several discussions and even paid for expensive treatments to find the cause of our infertility. However, being told there was nothing abnormal, we didn't make any progress in improving our marital relationship. Initially, my husband was encouraging and cooperative. However, as time passed without us having children, he seemed to become irritated and his attitude towards me started to change. When will I ever become a father?" he said loudly, throwing a sarcastic remark. His comments implied that he believes I'm the reason we can't have children. He stopped being cooperative with household chores, leaving everything to me: cooking, washing dishes, laundry, and cleaning. When I asked, "Hey, why did you suddenly stop helping with the housework? You used to do it before," he replied, "Because you're infertile. If you don't do the housework, you're not fulfilling your role as a woman, making our marriage pointless." Afterward, my husband's words became increasingly barbed.
My sister and her husband are already expecting their second child. Isn't that great? They're on their second, and we haven't even had our first yet.
My husband glared at me with a harsh look, scorning and mocking me.
If you had a normal body, I would have been a father long ago.
How can you say I'm not normal when we don't even know the cause yet? But my husband said, "It's always the woman's fault for infertility. Don't you know that? If I had known you were infertile, I would have never married you. You should feel a bit guilty." His words pierced my heart like sharp thorns. I also began receiving calls from my in-laws, eagerly saying, "We can't wait to see a grandchild." At first, I brushed it off, saying, "It's only been a year, and having a baby is a blessing." However, this seemed to backfire. My mother-in-law's attitude became harsher, accusing me, "You're useless for not being able to bear children. Your sister-in-law did it so quickly. You're the only defective one." This daily pressure weighed heavily on me. One day, my best friend Isabella invited me out for drinks after a long time. Michael, my ex-husband, had been busy with work and did a lot of overtime, so he was rarely home. That's when Isabella shared some shocking news with me.
I've been wanting to see you for so long. I have something important to talk to you about, Caroline.
I've missed you too, so what's on your mind?
Caroline, do you remember Leah?
Leah was Michael's childhood friend. They lived near each other when they were young, and their parents were close. Leah attended the same university as us and now works at the same company as me. Leah, the daughter of my company's CEO, got her job through family connections. We weren't close in college since we were in different clubs and departments, and even at work, we hardly interacted being in separate divisions. Once, my husband introduced me just once to Leah, saying, "She's my girlfriend, so please get along with her." But Leah, perhaps not wanting to lose her childhood friend Michael, glared at me with sharp eyes. Thinking she disliked me, I tried to avoid her as much as possible. Leah, tall and strikingly beautiful, was so popular in college that she participated in beauty pageants. Being a CEO's daughter and a beauty made her somewhat of a celebrity at our office. Leah, oh, Michael's childhood friend, right? Yeah, I know her. She's beautiful. We're in the same company but hardly interact. What about her?
Well, it's hard to say, but I think your husband and Leah are having an affair.
What? I was utterly shocked by Isabella's unexpected warning.
I saw them recently. They were walking hand in hand, not just like friends.
No way.
I think you should check it out. If you need to talk, just call me, okay?
Thank you for telling me. Michael was cheating. I had suspected it. His behavior towards me was awful, always coming home late, claiming he had to work overtime. He was never around on weekends, always busy with client entertainment. I had a sneaking suspicion, but I was pretending not to notice. That day, after parting with Isabella, I headed straight to a detective agency. The reason was, of course, to gather evidence of my husband's infidelity. Within a week, they had all the evidence, but I wasn't ready to file for divorce. No matter how terrible he was the man I once vowed to spend my life with. I couldn't decide right away. A few days later, I came home to find Michael, who usually came home late, sitting at the dinner table. "Oh, you're home."
Yeah.
"I thought you'd be late again today." I tried to sound sarcastic on purpose.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I need to talk to you.
Having heard about the affair from Isabella, I braced myself for bad news.
I want a divorce.
What? So that's how it's going to be. I realized he wasn't just fooling around with Leah. He was serious about her.
Leah is pregnant. I'm going to marry her.
Leah, your childhood friend. You said she was just a friend. And now she's pregnant. You were having an affair.
Don't call it an affair. Haha. Makes me sound like a jerk. Can't help it, right? Leah can get pregnant. She's beautiful, and there's no reason for me to choose you over her.
Michael's shameless attitude stunned me. He didn't think he did anything wrong. I was speechless. Seeing me silent, Michael smirked and said,
My mom has been nagging me to divorce you. She says Leah is prettier, kinder, and can bear children. She always liked Leah better. This will make her happy.
I knew they always preferred Leah. Tears welled up in my eyes.
Well, I've packed my stuff. Gotta get back to Lear and her upcoming baby. Ha.
With that, Michael left the house. I didn't have the strength to stop him. Later, a one-sided divorce paper arrived. A woman's handwriting was on a note tucked inside.
Please divorce my husband soon.
Seeing the contradictory words, I felt a question mark floating above my head. I really wanted to retort, "No, it was you who took my husband away." Seeing those words, I snapped back to reality. I was stuck with questions on my head. Why am I being blamed? I can't just silently accept this divorce. Determined, I took the evidence I had gathered from the detective agency and filed for divorce mediation. A few days after filing, I received a call from an unknown number. Wondering who it could be, I answered the phone to hear a woman's voice screaming, "What do you think you're doing? Why did you start a lawsuit?" It was Leah, Michael's mistress. "Well, it's only natural, isn't it? I know all about your inappropriate behavior. It's only right that I demand compensation."
Compensation? I'm pregnant. How can you be so cruel at a time when I need money for the baby?
Who's being cruel here? You're the one who got involved with a married man.
You're the one who's infertile, you horrible woman.
Her shrieking voice hurt my ears. Anyway, I plan to discuss the divorce, including compensation, in an official setting. Let's talk about it then. I said that and hung up the phone. During the mediation, given the ample evidence, Michael and Leah's relationship was recognized as infidelity. Michael tried to blame my infertility, but the court dismissed his claim as unreasonable since there was no conclusive evidence of my infertility within just a year of marriage. From Michael, I received a lump sum payment of $20,000 as alimony, and from Leah, I received $10,000. I didn't want to drag out any financial ties with them. Thus, our divorce was finalized. However, my ordeal didn't end there. Since Michael, Leah, and I went to the same university, the affair became a topic among many friends. According to a close friend, the rumor was that I had hidden my infertility and married Michael. Some even sympathized with Michael and Leah. That's terrible. Worse still, since Leah and I worked in the same company, rumors spread at work too. Everyone sided with the beautiful and influential company president's daughter, Leah, who made herself look like a victim, her eyes brimming with tears. Caroline is such a horrible person, demanding alimony when I'm about to have a baby. She even hid her infertility. She sobbed, seeking sympathy. At first, I tried to ignore it, but since Leah was the president's daughter, my bosses scolded me, saying, "Don't treat Leah badly." No matter how hard I worked, I was continually removed from major projects. Eventually, I was pushed to the point of resigning. While looking for a new job, I was headhunted by another company. "We need someone as diligent and capable as you," they said. In this new workplace, I thrived beyond my expectations. My boss really took the time to see each employee as an individual. Unlike my previous company, there was absolutely no culture of favoritism towards the boss's daughter or nepotism. I found myself drawn to such a wonderful boss. And that person turned out to be my current husband, Ethan. Ethan supported me when I was at my lowest after the cruel breakup with Michael. After several dinners together, we gradually began to talk about not just work but also personal matters, and this naturally developed into a romantic relationship. Our relationship was going well, and thankfully, Ethan proposed to me. However, still haunted by my past, I confessed my fears of infertility to him. Then Ethan looked at me with sincere eyes and said, "Of course, I'd be happy if we have children in the future. But the most important thing is that I love you, Caroline. You mean everything to me. So, even if we can't have children, I'll always be by your side." Saying this, he gently hugged me. I was truly happy. I came to the realization that I wanted to spend my lifetime with this man and decided to marry Ethan. Shortly after marrying Ethan, we welcomed our first child, a son named Liam. Not long after, our second child, a daughter named Emma, was born. Maybe the inability to conceive with Michael was a matter of timing or compatibility. Parenting is challenging, but we are living happily every day. One day, I was attending a friend's wedding. As the wedding reached its midpoint, with guests mingling and making their rounds of greetings, I stood up from my seat to head to the restroom. That's when, for the first time in 15 years, I spotted my ex-husband, the man who had left me. Yikes. Why is he here? My mind went blank for a moment. But then I remembered today's bride and groom were our university friends. It couldn't be helped that my ex-husband was there. I tried to ignore him and walk by without being noticed, but he loudly called out, "Hey!" He noticed me after all. Heck, what?
What do you mean what? You're here too. Haven't seen you in a while. You've gained weight. Ha. Ha ha.
Michael, possibly drunk, was talking loudly and spitting while talking to me. "You haven't changed a bit." Still as sarcastic as ever, I added in my mind. Then my ex-husband called his family over. There were Leah and her son. Leah, seeing me, laughed and said,
"Oh my, long time no see. Have you put on weight? Stress eating, maybe? Ha.
We've been through a lot. Ha ha. You're still infertile, right? No one would want you now. Ha ha.
I was so appalled by their rude behavior that I was at a loss for words. Suddenly, I noticed their son looking down, blushing with embarrassment. He had very handsome features.
Ah, I forgot to introduce him. This is my son. He looks cute like Leah, right?
Leah proudly boasted about her son.
He's handsome, smart, a real genius. Sorry, it seems like we're the only ones happy here. Ha ha.
The couple laughed at me, proudly showing off their son. However, their son had a distorted expression on his face, and that caught my attention a bit. It seems he's growing increasingly dissatisfied with his parents' attitude of scorning others right in front of him. I thought to myself, he must be a really kind child. But I had no time for them. Just as I was about to leave, Michael grabbed my arm tightly.
You divorced me because of infertility, and yet you still had the gall to take money from us.
Michael seemed to still hold a grudge about something that happened 15 years ago. If anyone should hold a grudge, it's me. Then Leah turned to me.
Yeah, you're infertile and single. Why do you need money? Families like us with children need it more. Give us back double the money you took back then.
I was stunned by their selfishness. Just then, Michael's son spoke up.
Single means unmarried, right? But she's wearing a wedding ring on her left hand.
Pointed out by Michael's son, Michael and Leah stared at my left ring finger.
You're married.
Everyone around was staring as Michael and Leah screamed loudly. I couldn't help but feel embarrassed. As I was wondering what to do, a familiar face suddenly appeared in my view.
Auntie and Uncle, you shouldn't be so loud at a celebration like this. It's bothering other people. Maybe you should be more considerate.
Mommy, who are these scary people?
Liam, Emma. Yes, my children, Liam and Emma, worried about me being late, had come to check on me. Emma always speaks her mind, but it was rare for Liam to speak so provocatively.
Mommy, you're late.
Mom, you have kids.
Yes, I do. Let me introduce them. This is my son, Liam, and my daughter, Emma. Michael was shocked to see the children of the woman he thought was infertile. Leah stared intently at my son. After a while, they began to speak in a muttering tone, with a voice that seemed strained and hoarse.
That uniform.
It seemed they were curious about my son's attire. Yes, he came straight from school with my husband, so he's still in his uniform.
Not that, I mean. That uniform, it's from that famous private middle school.
Oh, yes. Liam worked hard and wanted to try for it, so we let him take the exam. He passed and has been attending that private middle school since this year. Indeed, my son excelled in his studies and was attending a renowned school in the area.
No way, that can't be your son of all people.
My daughter, too. Next year, she plans to take the same school's exam.
Yeah, and you know, Liam is amazing. He won a violin contest.
Violin?
I thought I recognized this boy. He was on TV recently.
You saw that? Yes, he's been getting quite a bit of media attention lately. He was coming back from violin practice today.
No, this can't be.
Leah and my ex-husband were amusingly speechless.
You were supposed to be infertile. How could you have children like this?
To the flustered Michael, I conveyed calmly, "You both seem happy, and that's great. As you can see, I'm filled with happiness too. Please, let's not involve each other anymore. We have no relation to each other now." Just as I was about to leave with my kids, my husband, Ethan, arrived.
Hey, what's going on? The main event is about to restart.
Seeing my husband, Michael's face went pale.
Mr. Lopez, the president.
What?
Leah also turned pale, recognizing my husband.
Is your husband, by any chance, the young Mr. Lopez, who became the president of Resonance Inc. last year?
Indeed, my husband Ethan was the president of a parent company of Leah's father's firm. During my job search, I was approached by the parent company and made the switch. At the new job, I met my future husband, Ethan, who was already popular and skilled. Last year, Ethan was appointed as the president of the company, recommended by the then president.
I'm Lopez. Huck, what's with this atmosphere? What happened?
Sensing the uneasy atmosphere, my husband looked puzzled, and then my son, Liam, spoke up.
I heard these people calling Mom infertile and fat, so Emma and I came to help her out.
You heard that, huh? It seems like Liam and Emma overheard me being insulted by my ex-husband and his wife. That's why Liam spoke in such a manner earlier.
You guys are, wait, that.
Realizing the context, my husband's expression hardened. I heard rumors, but I didn't expect such a lack of decency. Then, Michael suddenly started making excuses to my husband.
No, I mean, Mr. Lopez, the president. There's no way I would speak ill of the wife of President Lopez. Right, Leah?
Why are you groveling to this woman's husband? I was the one who suffered because of her, getting in trouble with my father for having my money taken. I'll never forgive her.
Leah, think before you speak. If he dislikes us, our subcontracting company is finished.
As Michael started to flatter my husband and Leah protested, they began arguing. It's just unbelievable. Then their son, who had been silent, shouted out,
Let's stop this already. I've been listening, and it's terrible how Mom and Dad are talking about this lady. Calling her fat, infertile, and ridiculing her, and then demanding money back. It's embarrassing for me. And what's this about an affair? Am I a child born from an affair? Am I an unwanted child?
Hearing their son's tearful plea, Michael and Leah started to become visibly unsettled.
Well, it's not like that.
So.
I realized that the other attendees around us were staring at us. Finally noticing the stares from around us, she blushed deeply and looked down. Although I couldn't forgive Michael and Leah, I admired their son for his strong sense of justice and kindness. He had nothing to do with this. Thinking this, I hurriedly tried to back up their son. But before I could say anything, my husband spoke up.
Thank you for defending my wife from the insults. You really are a kind child,
he said, patting the boy's head. Continuing, I also spoke up with a smile. But maybe I am a bit chubby.
That's not true at all.
Well, actually, I'm pregnant. My belly has been growing, I said, stroking my belly. Actually, I was then pregnant with our third child. I was on maternity leave. To the child with tear-filled, reddened eyes, I said, Your mom also nurtured you in her belly with great care. You're not an unwanted child. Your mom and dad love you and are proud of you, right? Saying this, I looked at Michael and Leah. The boy also asked them, Really? They quickly nodded and said, Yes, yes, you're our pride. Yeah, you're very important to us. The boy immediately brightened up with a smile. Seeing him smile, I felt relieved.
Let's get back to our seats for now. It's a day of celebration.
Saying that, each family returned to their own seats. And so, the chaotic scene came to an end. The wedding concluded successfully, and as we headed to the station, Leah and Michael approached with their son, holding hands. Liam and Emma were protective of me, but my husband chuckled and calmed them down.
Sorry about that.
We're truly sorry. It's late, but we regret everything, including today. And thank you for earlier, for our son.
It was the first apology I had received from them in 15 years. Perhaps having a child had changed them a bit. I just laughed and said, Really, after all this time? Well then. With just that one phrase, I turned my back on them and began to walk away. Liam offered to carry my bags and took the one with the maternity mark on it. Emma cheerfully said, Here you go, and draped a coat over my shoulders. Despite their young age, they are thoughtfully looking out for me during my pregnancy.
All right, tonight's dinner will be Dad's homemade hamburgers, Liam and Emma's favorite.
Yay!
Thank you. I vowed to protect the smiles of my beloved family, moving away from the pains of the past.